Steel Curtain Network.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman. It's another Steelers preview podcast. We're still in the wake of the NFL draft. Joining me as always, Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's up?
Is it Thursday? Is it?
Man.
I feel like
is.
I should still be watching the TV, waiting for the next selection. I'm still trying to get this all figured out, how to live life post 2023 NFL draft.
It's a love-hate relationship. Like, I love it, but I freaking hate that weekend. Gosh, it's just so much crap to do, and it's hectic. Bryan Davis, what's up, Bryan?
I feel like a department store Santa, like Artie Lang and Elf, just like a really tired after the fact, but I am still loving life because this is one of the most fun times I've ever had during the NFL draft because I feel like I know more about every other team as well because of everything that we've been doing with the Fans First Sports Network, everything we've been doing here on Steel Curtain Network. I felt like I still knew guys, which was shocking in the second and third round. I knew these guys that were getting drafted because I'm having conversations with guys like Jeremy Betts and Andrew Wilbar and KT Smith and Shannon White and all the time. And now I know more about these prospects. So I've had so much fun. And I've got to tell you, the countdown has begun. I know today's May 4th. I get it. Today is Star Wars Day. Today is James Harrison's birthday. But it is 51 weeks till the 2024 NFL draft. The Steelers hopefully will be on the clock late.
He had to bring up the fourth thing. James Harrison's birthday. Happy birthday to James Harrison. I still will say I think his interception return for a touchdown in Super Bowl 43 was the greatest play in Super Bowl history. And yes, I think that was greater than the Santonio Holmes catch. But everyone has their favorite. I get it. I'm not going to pick, sides here, but I just think that was the better play. It took points off the board.
You can classify them differently.
Sure. Yeah.
Santonio Holmes' catch is the greatest Super Bowl winning play in history.
Yeah, I'd say that.
That was a huge swing. That changed everything. Momentum going in the locker room, everything. Yeah, that is my favorite play too, because of the story behind it. There's not a story behind Santonio Holmes catching that ball in the end zone, bend to 10. There's a story from Friday at practice where Tomlin wasn't happy. And for those of you who think that he doesn't coach, yeah, he was coaching. He's thinking you guys are getting a little too lazy on those returns, and we're going to practice this. We're going to work it out. And just the fact that James has the story of like, hey, I was supposed to rush and I just dropped back. And Kurt Warner has the story about like, oh my gosh, he fooled me. He got me.
Yeah.
So that's what makes that play amazing.
Those damn Cower players. Tomlin's coaching Cowers players. Anyways.
How many times did you watch that today, Jeff?
It's like a continuous loop. Like I shared the video on Twitter. I shared it on Twitter, just like watching it again. It's hard to believe that was John Madden's last game he ever called was Super Bowl 43. A little bit of tidbit of information. And I know Bryan knows this. We'll see if Dave does. Who was the halftime act waiting to go on stage when James Harrison rumbled and stumbled into the end zone?
Was that that wasn't the Rolling Stones year, was it?
No, that was XL. That was Super Bowl.
That was the other Steelers
right,
Super Bowl.
Yeah,
okay. That was honestly, that was my first Super Bowl of being a father. And I was trying to get my less than a year old child to go to sleep so I could watch the second half. I have no idea who was the Super Bowl halftime show.
The boss. It was the boss.
It was a good one.
Okay.
The boss
yeah.
was good. And one of my favorites from Adam Sandler. I love the Hanukkah song. And he's not Jewish, but my mom thinks he is. Bruce Springsteen.
If you want a good read, so I love Rick Riley because he's a golf guy and he's written a lot of golf books that I love. And he was with Sports Illustrated and he's a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. And he actually was on the field. He actually coerced his editor into letting him go and be one of the crowd members that run onto the field. He wrote an article after the game about how he was so mad. He missed the James Harrison interception pick six because he was in the tunnel, couldn't see a thing, only heard people erupting. He goes out on the field thinking, I'm just going to hear a good show. He can't even hear the music because all the speakers are pointing out to the crowd. He doesn't even get to hear Bruce Springsteen. And he said, what a waste of time. He didn't get to see anything. But I did just share this real good, Brian. Good, Dave.
Oh, I was going to say the one thing that I keep noting every time I watch that play is there was a flag early, right after the interception. And a lot of times people forget about that. So in the moment, I'm sitting there thinking, is this coming back? Is this coming back? And then I'm like, is he going to make it to the end zone? If he comes up 1 foot short, they would have got it. They would have got an untimed down. So that would have changed everything. It was I think it was an illegal. It was one of those things.
Formation, maybe?
No, it was post. It was after the it was after the interception. I think it was someone
ran out of
taking out a blocker or something, or it was something that the offense did there that they're not allowed to do once they become the defense, and a lot of times they don't even realize it. Like you're not allowed to tackle a blocker. It was something weird like that. I can't remember what.
I always thought it was I thought it was said one of the Cardinals ran out of bounds intentionally, trying
that might have been it
bring
to
him
get
down,
around people.
You can't do that. You have to stay in bounds. Anyways,
but that was early in the return that flag was out. It was early.
So maybe that wasn't it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone asked me about that on Twitter. They said there's a flag. It says on the bottom, flag. It goes yellow on the screen. Like, what was the call? And I took a guess and said I'm not 100%.
I'll see if I can find it.
Brian.
One more favorite thing from that. Not a lot of people know about this, but if you watch closely, he's basically flagging off, just telling Deshae Townsend to go away. Because
he wanted to give him the ball.
Lateral. He's like, no way.
Which is funny because you think he would have, because Deshae Townsend was a heck of a lot faster. It probably would have made it less exciting, but at the same time, it's kind of funny in and of itself. But
wait! I got it. It was a 15-yard face mask by Elton Brown.
Wow.
Is what that was. That's a good trivia question.
There you go.
That's a deep track.
Yeah.
Elton Brown,
he was a guard.
face mask.
Yeah. It was a face mask. What's even better if you can go back and find a replay to see who he grabbed by the
face mask.
He's also the love child of Elton John and James Brown.
You knew something like that was coming.
That was like Ulysses Gilbert. Remember Ulysses Gilbert?
Yes.
Like the president in there.
That's a deep track there for you. All right, I do have to tell you all this before we get started, and I know it's almost 10 minutes in, but this is sometimes just what we do.
We're talking Steelers.
That's sort of.
Yeah.
So you'll find
Super Bowl 43.
No, what I'm about to talk about is not Steelers related.
Oh, okay. That's
you all brought it up, so I have to. So today is May the 4th, and I'm inundated with people that are Star Wars fans, which, hey, that's fine. So I just found it funny today. I put on Twitter, little known fact about Jeff. I've never seen a Star Wars movie, but I have seen Spaceballs. I use a Spaceballs GIF. Nonetheless, let me just say that led to me being quoted in an article that was published in the Washington Post today.
What?
So after I put that tweet out, I actually got contacted by a writer from the Washington Post who probably was searching Twitter for tweets that similar verbiage that I used. And he said, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? It can just be through direct message, and that's fine. I said, sure. Answered all his questions. I said, if you publish this, can I please get a link? He sent me a link. Here you go. And there it is. All these people that have never seen Star Wars, he kind of did the same thing. And then he goes, 40-year-old Jeff Hartman, who... So I just sent it to my family and said, I made it big. I'm in the Washington Post, not for my Steelers coverage, for me never seeing a Star Wars movie. So there you go.
That's awesome. Wait till we tell him that Dave's never seen Die Hard.
Yeah.
I did mention Die Hard in my quote. I said I grew up watching comedies and Die Hard with my dad. So there you go. I made the Washington Post. There you go. All right, let's get this show on the road. We're talking about the Steelers rookie class, obviously. I do want to tell everyone to check out my Let's Ride podcast on Friday morning on the audio only side, wherever you get your podcast, search Steel Curtain Network. Why? Got some inside info that I'm sharing about the draft room, the war room, what the Steelers were thinking, actual inside information. That's right. You have to check it out. And, but seriously, this rookie class, Dave, I want to throw it over to you first because you talked about this on your Steelers Stat Geek podcast on Thursday morning. And it's all about kind of expectations and setting those expectations from a logical standpoint. And you look back at the 1974 draft class, arguably, I don't even think it's arguable. There have been drafts that have 3 Hall of Famers. This had 4. 1974, phenomenal class. Dave, why don't you go ahead and take it from there and we'll get started.
Yeah, well, it's not just the Steelers' best draft class ever. It's the best draft class of any NFL franchise ever. It just is.
Well, there was a Cowboys draft. I think they had 3,
but
it wasn't 4. But it wasn't 4. But I mean, so there's some that they'll argue. But the 4 in one class.
4 plus an undrafted free agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what was I supposed to say? You didn't even pose a question. Well, if you look at that 1974 class, how many players started their rookie season? Not even from the first game, although one it was from the first game. How many of all those players were starters? Started half the games
in 74.
In 74.
So how many started the first game is what you're asking?
No, how many started half the games in 1974? How many of their rookies? 1. It was 1. It was only rookie of the year, Jack Lambert, who started all 14. That's it. That's all. They did not start games. They did not get going. Stallworth started 3. Swan started 2. Jimmy Allen started 1. Donnie Shell started 1. And Mike Webster started 1. That's it. That's all. Not only that, they picked 21 players in that draft. And 11 of them never played in the NFL.
Could you imagine if that was like what draft coverage is like now? 21 players. Dave would be hoarse by the end of the draft. Well, I would be dead from exhaustion. Bryan would be dead.
14 of those 21 fall under the numbers that they now have. Like there was 259 picks in this year's draft. So it should have been 260. Dolphins. Okay. The 14 of those picks were under those numbers.
Right.
So you could say, okay, well, 7 more players were basically like undrafted free agents. But yeah, they just, I mean, like I said, 11 of them didn't even play in the NFL ever. And this was the best draft class ever. And the thing was, so whether or not how many of them panned out, because honestly, you want quality over quantity when you go there. You've got a quantity of quality in that draft. When you're talking 4 Hall of Famers plus an undrafted free agent that's a Hall of Famer, that's just crazy numbers. But they didn't start as rookies. What was it? I think Lynn Swann had 11 catches as a rookie for 200 some yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, I broke this all down on StatGeek. All these players, they didn't get going for several years. Mike Webster played 1 game his first season. Well, no, he appeared in games. He started 1 game his first season, 1 game his second season, and wasn't the starter until his 3rd year.
If anyone listening to this, and if you listen to our audio only podcast, you've heard Jim Wexell's Steel City Insider podcast on our network. Jim's book On the Clock is phenomenal. And he talks about the 74 class, but he does it in a way that's not covered in other books. And when he was on my Let's Ride podcast, he said that was the biggest challenge, was to try to find stories that hadn't been told, because that's probably, like Dave said, the best draft class of all time. So clearly there's going to be a ton of articles and books and everything. Talk about luck. They had all these first round grades on these guys. Chuck Noll wanted John Stallworth in the first round and had to be convinced that he'll be there. Just don't take him in the first round. He'll be there. So they take Lynn Swann. He wants him in the second round. No, telling you, he'll be there. So they take Jack Lambert in the second, and then he gets it. I think he was the 3rd round pick that year.
No, he was their 3rd pick. They didn't have a 3rd round pick. They had 2 4th-round picks.
What round was he in?
He was round 4. He was pick number 82.
Yes.
And then even the small center out of Wisconsin, like they wanted him sooner. Like, no, they'll be there. They'll be there. You got to get lucky sometimes. And they got lucky in a big way. Bryan, what do you think?
Well, a couple things. First of all, a lot of people don't understand Jimmy Allen was pretty good in that draft. He was, I think, the 3rd Steeler pick that year. He was a cornerback. He had a decent career. 4th, he was the 4th player.
He was after Stallworth. He was the 2nd 4th-round pick. Only because I did all this for the podcast this morning that I did.
Yeah, not bad at all. But we talk about grades. We talk about immediate reaction. A lot of people were going after the Detroit Lions. You know, Kevin Smith mentioned they had one of the most interesting drafts. look, I don't have a problem with what the Detroit Lions did because they picked in the mold of their head coach, and they knew exactly where they wanted to go. Back in 1974, they were picking for they had a lot of help from Bill Nunn. He helped engineer that entire thing. And that draft happened on January 29th, 1974. The very next day in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, this was the quote, and I love this. I've read this so many times. The Steelers seem to have come out of the first 5 rounds of the draft appreciably strengthened at wide receiver, but nowhere else. They didn't get a tight end, and the ones remaining are more suspect than prospect. They didn't get a punter, although none of the nation's best collegiate punters went in the first 5 rounds. They didn't get an offensive tackle who might have shored up what could well become a weakness. What they did get was Swan, who seems to be a sure pop to help, Lambert, who figures to be the number 5 linebacker if he pans out, and 3 question marks.
Yes, they said he was the number 5 linebacker, and he's one of 3 Steelers ever to win Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. Well, in Wexel's book, they tell this phenomenal story where they go to seed Lambert in college, and they're asking him to run drills, and the field was a mess because of the rain. And so they're doing it in the parking lot, and he is diving on in this cinder-laden parking lot, and he's getting up, bloodied, legs are bloodied. He's picking cinders out of his legs, and he's telling the scouts, keep it coming, keep it coming. Like, you should know by then that guy's different. Like, he's just built different in that regard. But this all correlates to what we're talking about today, and that is about the 2023 draft class. Everyone gets excited. Everyone thinks that these rookies are going to come in on day one and not just play, but play meaningful snaps and have a significant role in the team. That's all great. And I think that before we go into this class and talk specifics, I want to ask you all, do you think that the past few draft classes dating back to 2020 have kind of set up the fan base for that? When you think about some of the roles that these players have had, it hasn't been just one player out of a draft class that has had a significant role. I mean, you think back to Chase Claypool. I know he wasn't a first-round pick, but he had a significant role. You go to 2021, you're thinking about, obviously, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth. They had significant roles, Najee Harris being a starter almost from day one. You go back to Kenny Pickett in 2022. Dave, do you think that recent history has fans thinking a little bit different than going all the way back to 74, where it took a couple years till they realized what they had?
Yeah, but I think that's what it is. Oh, in today's NFL, with the 4-year contract and the 5th-year option for the first-round pick, and free agency changes everything. That's why you can't even begin to compare with 74. I mean, you're right. You kind of had the players until you didn't want them anymore. So I also understand that, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that the players are ready to be contributors, because when the Steelers call on their rookies more, it's usually not that they're having a great season.
Or the salary cap dips. Kendrick Green. Anyways, Brian, what do you think about recent history dictating what could the fan base expectation be for these rookies?
You know, that's the thing, because there's things that you guess and things that you know, and expectations are really tough for this because we have all these scouting reports, and the reason that there's bust in the first round is because everybody believed in this guy, but he didn't work out. So, you know, I've talked about guys that would have been picked. Devin Bush was going to get picked if they don't, by another team at 10, if they don't move up. He just did not work out, and there were some circumstances that helped him not work out. But, you know, there's some guys that seem like they are going to be, it could be Porter, it could be Broderick Jones, that they are going to be superstars for this team, and something happens that they don't work out whatsoever. And then, excuse me.
Your wiener's out again.
And I was trying to do that. I was trying to do that without her head coming on the screen. I do apologize. Very unprofessional.
He's talking about a dog. For anyone that's listening in the audience,
just said that makes it even worse.
Yeah. So yeah, she's you know what? We can't tease the fans here. There's my little buddy. This is Luna, my little buddy, and when I do my shows, she wants to hang out and sleep up here, but my daughter just let her in, and I was like, gosh, now she's going to claw at me, and I'm going to try to say something poignant and now sound stupid because I'm worrying about my 12-pound wiener. So with that being said, yes, that's my crutch because I've got to get out of this somehow. But a Broderick Jones, we think he's going to hit, but he very well might not. Darnell Washington, everybody loves him. He became the it guy. Then he fell a little bit because of some rumors out there. But everyone thinks this guy's going to be a beast. He's going to be amazing. He's 6'8". What if he doesn't hit? We don't know. A Nate Herbig that not everybody's as excited about, but there's national guys that are. There's guys here that are very excited about him, but you just don't know how he's going to translate. Just like that Jack Lambert pick being the 5th best linebacker. He might be something that we don't know he is. So it's really hard with expectations because expectations on paper seem like they're perfect, seem like we know where they are right now, but we don't know until they get on that playing field and they get through disasters, like they heal from an injury, like they come away unscathed. So many things like that. Did I say Nate or Nick? Just, you know what?
You said
I'm gonna
Nate.
tell y'all.
We knew it was Nick. It's okay.
Look, yes, I met Nick. Here's the thing. I'm going to do it again and again. They're both with N's. I can't figure it out. And they have the same last name. What am I going to do?
Nasty boys. The nasty boys.
The nasty boys. Sags and knobs. There you go. So anyways, yeah, the expectations are that this is going to be a good rookie class. And because of the last couple of years, we've had some guys that needed to contribute right away. Why? Because this is a much different NFL. There are vacancies that we didn't have back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s because a Tyreek Hill could come up and say, hey, I want out. And 2 days later, he's on another team and you didn't expect to have that vacancy. Everything changes now. This is so much more of a quick turnover league. So you're going to have rookies step up quicker. But where the Steelers are lucky here and blessed, they were not desperate going in. So I talked to Kevin Smith about that. That's going to be on our show tomorrow when we do superlatives of the Pittsburgh Steelers draft class. So we're not doing something everybody else is doing, but we're looking at it and just saying, yeah, they didn't have to. No one has to come in and start right away. If they do, it's gravy at this point.
All right, it's a great segue. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back out of this break, we are going to be talking all about expectations. We'll kind of set a floor and a ceiling and where we think they'll fit in between during the season. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. And we're back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome back. We're talking expectations for this rookie class. And this is something that, it's easy to say right now. There's been no rookie minicamp. That's going to be next week, the 12th to the 14th. They've announced that officially today, Thursday. And we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen them even in Steelers gear yet. So this is the really early expectations, but this is kind of also us keeping our fingers on the pulse of the fan base and kind of then like, okay, what are people expecting? So let's start top down, first round pick, Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Dave, if you were to say like the best case scenario, or we can call it the ceiling, whatever y'all want to do in terms of verbiage, what would be that top end in terms of expectations for Broderick Jones in 2023?
Well, the top end for 2023,
yes, just this year,
is that he's so good that they just can't deny putting him out on the field. Yeah. It's not that someone else gets hurt. It's not that someone else just isn't doing very, very well. Because I know some people are really down.
Sorry.
Yeah. In other words, I said that about Kendrick Green.
You did.
2 years ago, I'm like, I want him to win the job. I don't want him to get it by default. And I already think because, the Steelers have two offensive tackles that have started every game for the last 2 years. No, not every game. All but one game the last 2 years. That's what it was. And they played every snap except for one snap last year. So it's not that you don't have offensive tackles that aren't there that could go out there and give you adequate play. you want to be like, man, this guy is just so great. We can't even think about not putting him out there because he might be our best guy on the offensive line. That's the ceiling, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Brian, do you agree with that ceiling? You have a different one.
Yes, but I'm going to economize my quote here of what I'm going to say. He needs to be Marquise Pouncey. That is different position. I get it, but he needs to be that 15-year guy or whatever we got from Marquise. I think it was like 10 years, but that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. He needs to be is he needs to be the anchor. And I really think that he's got all the intangibles to be one.
It's like Dave said, it's almost like it's undeniable. Whether you're there live, reporters, they all see it and like, there's no way they can't have this guy on the field. Rookie or not, this is a day one starter. That's the ceiling. What about the low end now? We did the top end. Let's do the low end now. Dave, what would that look like for Broderick Jones?
Well, if you're not here watching us live, it's this.
Oh,
it's that he's the tackle eligible for the whole year. That's the low end. I mean, and obviously we're not talking about that word we don't want to say that starts with an I and ends with an jury. We don't want to even talk about that. That if he's there and he's healthy, but that's all the further he makes it. Now, if that's because what we talked about after the pick, because the other tackles are stepping up so well that he just can't get on the field, that's even a whole different story. If Chooks or Dan Moore hold on to the starting jobs and they're struggling, and yet the Steelers can't put Broderick Jones out there, that's somewhat of the floor to say that he's your tackle eligible guy. The even bigger floor is if they're not playing well and they put him out there and then they have to go back to one of the other guys just because it's not good.
What about you, Brian? You agree or disagree?
I agree with Dave to an extent. What I think about when I think of what I'm worried about with Broderick Jones is this: big program, big players there, maybe not ready for prime time. Maybe he was shielded. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's a possibility. Where I'm going to disagree with Dave just a tiny bit is I don't think he would be the tackle eligible because they don't need to play that game anymore with a guy like Darnell Washington.
True. Yeah. But I'm just saying relegated to the guy that the only time he gets on the field is if they're going jumbo.
Or special teams.
Yeah, or special teams, yeah.
But you don't have to go jumbo because what did we always say? I loved sitting next to Dave Schofield at a game when he's like, all right, here comes number 72. Zach Banner's in here. You know it's a run, and everybody knows it's a run, and there's no mystery to it. My gosh, the Scooby-Doo gang has it figured out way before the Steelers do. You know,
there was a thing to that. Here's some trivia for you. The only way you knew it was a pass is if they switched wide receivers. Who did they put out there, and who did they replace them? Who was getting replaced, and who did they put out there? Do you remember who they were?
Well, Deontay Johnson probably came off the field.
Nope. Well, yeah. So who was in that jumbo package, Brian? Who was the wide receiver when we were there that they ran all year? I'm going to be impressed.
I was Switzer?
Johnny Holton.
Johnny Holton. Yeah.
And if they took Johnny Holton off, that's when they put him on the field. And if they took Holton off and put James Washington out there, it was going to be a pass.
So, that's really interesting stuff. Now they don't have to do that because your tackle eligible is your tight end, your 6'8" tight end, and he doesn't have to report. With that, there's mystery back into it.
Let's go to the second round. 32nd overall pick, Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Let's go to Dave. So what's your ceiling for JPJ?
God, like Broderick, it's going to be the same for all these guys. It might come down a little bit.
I mean, there's going to be some players where I don't think that day one is an option, really.
Yeah, that it's like, all right, he's the best guy. Got to put him out there. Everyone's healthy. Doesn't matter. He's the best option. He's got it all picked up. He understands everything. The learning curve is small, and he's he's the guy that's out there along with Patrick Peterson that doesn't lead the field.
Brian? Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, and I think the ceiling for JPJ this year is merely first or second team all-rookie team. I think that's really, I think he's going to ease into it. I don't think he's a superstar right away, but he's on everybody's list of guys to watch. I think that's what the ceiling is because they have the opportunity to ease him into it. Then on the other hand, gosh, I'm probably jumping the gun, so I'm just going to shut up right now.
Go ahead.
No, you
Then
start.
on the other,
Go ahead and start.
All you're doing is part of it. You're just agreeing with me, so I'll agree with you this time. You go ahead.
the worry is that he's a legacy pick, and he was picked because of his name, and he was hyped because of his name, and the fact that even though he has a lot of past breakups, that he's going to be a lot like his number's sake, and not pull in the interceptions like Uncle Ike. I'm sorry.
So you bring up Ike Taylor, and Ike Taylor was not. He was not on the hands team. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
On an onside.
Well,
kick.
we love him. We're not giving him
and he
back.
was still a really good cornerback, though. So I guess it comes down to to be considered a top end corner, do you have to have, those interception numbers? Joey Porter Jr. will get his hands on the football, but that's just a question that every individual fan can answer on their own. Dave, what do you think?
Well, he's just a player that goes for the breakup more than the interception. Yeah. That's because of his length. So to me, you're asking the floor and ceiling. I'm just telling you absolute best, absolute worst. And that is he goes the first half of the season the Ahkello Witherspoon route. He's only out there in certain situations, and when he is like his first real moment, he gives up a huge play, and it just destroys the confidence.
Henry Ruggs.
So yes, that's not where I think he's going to be. But I'm just saying, if that happens, then you're almost looking at year 2 before you get into it.
Go ahead, Brian.
I just want to make one mention here. Let's go back to October and that Dolphins game. 3 dropped interceptions is a big deal. And look, I love the fact that this guy has past breakups. I have an Ike Taylor jersey. And I don't have a lot of jerseys, but I love Ike, one of my all-time favorite guys. And Ike Taylor, he when it counted in the Super Bowl, pulled in an interception. So I'm just bringing it up. A lot of people, it's kind of like Dan Marino, one of the greatest of all time, but there's that big but never won a ring. And so there's a lot of guys, you've got to win that ring to get that Hall of Fame, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be considered an elite corner if you don't have those picks on your stat sheet.
Yeah, that's true. This is where it gets a little difficult, and we're only going to do rounds 1 through 4 here. So let's go with, Keanu Benton. So now we're talking about the Steelers' second round draft pick out of Wisconsin, defensive lineman. Dave, in terms of ceiling, this is one of the situations where when you look at the Steelers roster, I'm not sure his ceiling in his rookie year would be, oh my gosh, he's starting since day one. That might be a little much for me personally. What do you think?
I think his ceiling is seeing him play across the defensive line, not just, hey, start off at nose tackle. It's easy, get you playing time there. And then as you develop, slide you more into some defensive tackle role. If he's a guy that's basically bringing the same thing as Cam Hayward and Larry O out there, and can play in those spots this year. He doesn't have to play in those spots this year, but if he is, that's because he's really doing a great job.
Brian, you agree?
Yeah, Dave's absolutely correct. Look, the thing with Keanu Benton is the fact that all he needs to do to have the ceiling really is being a starter at the end of the season. Does not have to be because of what you have on that defensive line and the guys you have there. If he is a starter by week 4, I'm going to be disappointed, actually, because that means that, well, there's only one way I wouldn't be disappointed. He's that great that you can't keep him on the bench. But that's not likely to happen with many players. You don't want to see him there too much early because you've got the Ogunjobi factor. You've got the other players out there that are manning the middle. And of course, Hayward. So you want to see a lot more out of them for a successful season and let this guy, he might be good as a red shirt too. Just get seasoned and see more of, that's the great thing about this draft. See more of him in season 2. But by the end of the season, he could pull a Montravius Adams and become the guy at the end. But the problem with that is Montravius was like, we got to have somebody that's at least half decent.
Yeah, I think for me, the high end is him being a rotational player along the defensive line. Meaning they trust him enough that, hey, Cam, Larry O needs a break. Keanu, Benton, get out there. If they trust him enough and not Isaiah Loudermilk, if he supersedes those players, I think that's really, really great for him as a rookie. The low end, I think we can all probably agree he's relegated to what? Special teams duties, not really seeing the field too much. Dave, you think he's inactive?
Inactive. That's the low end. Not that I think it'll happen.
Right.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
But that's not an uncommon thing for Steelers with defensive linemen. But my problem is I keep thinking of him as a 3rd round pick. I keep thinking of him as a 3rd round pick because he was
third pick, but not the.
But he's a 2nd round pick, so I don't think they would have him inactive. But they got a lot of bodies on the defensive line.
Drew, Bryan, you agree?
Yes.
All right, very good. Let's go to the 3rd round pick. At not pick 80, pick 93, Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia, the mammoth of a man, Mount Washington, as they're calling him. Dave, what's the high end here? This is interesting with Pat Freiermuth in the mix and what we think his maximum potential could be as a rookie.
Oh, his high end. I think he has the most potential to have the biggest high end of them all as a rookie.
Really?
I think it's he's also got the broadest spectrum. So I think his high end is not only is he out there a lot in blocking situations, but that he's utilized so much more as a pass catcher than he ever was in college.
Okay.
I like it. Bryan, what do you think?
The high end is what the Steelers make him, because Dave just said it. He was not that much of an option, only catching 45 or so balls his entire career, but everybody knows he could do it. He made an Odell Beckham type catch at the combine. This is a guy that could be Martavis Bryant, better than Martavis Bryant, because Martavis Bryant didn't start until I'm talking rookie season Martavis Bryant. I'm not talking.
Yeah.
He was inactive the first 6 games, but he could be active from the start. But when he catches his first touchdown pass, and when Martavis Bryant caught his first touchdown pass, everybody knew that there was something special, and the Steelers were elevated because of it. Because that rookie season, it was like watching a guy come in that you did not expect, but just went off, and he's just an instant celebrity in Steeltown. And I really think right now they're giving him nicknames. He's Mount Washington. Everybody wanted him to be Agent Zero, which he didn't get because of what the Steelers do, because they're more traditional in that. And they didn't bend towards him on that. But he's fine. He asked for it. He didn't get it. He's not going to pout. This guy has, from what I understand, a very good head on his shoulders. The knees are supposed to not be a problem. And with that, he might be the best find that the Steelers had. He's when they talk value picks, and we have all this jargon that we didn't have 5 years ago. But now that he's the value pick, he's a guy that people are going to expect a lot out of, but he can match it.
I think for me, if I'm trying to be realistic with my own expectations and the upper end of it, if he's a, Dave said tackle eligible kind of guy where he comes in jumbo sets, he does a great job blocking and is a really good red zone target for the Steelers, I'm happy. Anything better than that is gravy in his rookie year. Because with Pat Freiermuth, you're not going to expect him to be out there all the time. I'm not sure if Zach Gentry's job is safe now, but that's not the discussion that we're having here. So what is the low end here, Dave? What do you think? If we went over the high end, what's the low end?
CA3.
Oh, just injured reserve. Okay. Bryan?
Low end is he just doesn't match the hype, and he doesn't translate like everybody thinks he's going to translate to the pros.
Dave, you might be able to say, to keep it a little bit more relative, you could say Ladarius Green. In
Well,
terms
Darius
of
Green
just,
came back and played a couple. Even had a touchdown there, didn't he?
well, yeah.
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 So I'm
Well, he
just
had that great
saying.
game against Cincinnati, and then he got concussed in that game.
Yeah, I'm just saying if something happens where then, that was why he dropped. Although I'm not buying that really was the issue. As Jim Wexel talked about on the Steel City Insider on the Steel Curtain Network on Wednesday, that he was a blocking tight end that didn't have a lot of production. That's why he dropped. Whether it was really the medicals or not, but let's say it is a medical thing, and they're like, you know what, we need to put him on the shelf for a year to see if he can come back next year, and that to me, that's the seal, or it's the floor. But
yeah,
I mean, chances are you could get that out of one of the draft picks this year. So
little tease, check out Let's Ride. Inside information about the medicals. Anyways,
Yep.
I'm not lying here. Okay.
Oh, he's not.
No,
he is not.
Brian, go ahead. What do you think about the floor?
It's the same thing. I just mentioned that he doesn't match the hype, and that's the thing. And they just don't use him the way they could use him. And because look, in Georgia, they had so many weapons. They won the national championship 2 years in a row. He was considered a backup tight end. I guess he was second tight end. That doesn't mean anything. You've seen running backs that were the second option come in, or a guy like Willie Parker that was like the third or fourth option his senior year and come in and be a superstar on the professional level. So there's so many things that could happen there, but it's really the thing. I think I agree with the injury thing with Dave, but really for me, it's that he just doesn't match that hype that everybody built him up to be. And maybe he is just a second tier tight end. I doubt it. And I just want to caution everybody because of my Joey Porter Jr. comments and everything that got turned into the live chat as like, oh, well, he's not this. You got to understand this. No, remember, we are doing the floor and ceiling here. So this is best and worst case scenario.
Exactly. And it's just their rookie season. So let's go to the last one we're going to cover here for realistic expectations. 4th round draft pick. Everyone saw this coming. Nick, not Nate, Herbig, linebacker, Wisconsin. Everyone's debating, is he inside? Is he outside? Is he hybrid? Well, they sent the outside linebackers coach out there in the post-pick press conference. So that tells you they're going to at least try him there. It's a tough one for me to try and give realistic expectations for Nick Herbig. Dave, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, the ceiling, he's the third guy in the rotation, and they work him on both sides, and they only have to have a 3-man rotation.
Yeah. Brian?
The ceiling is exactly what Dave said, that he's that guy also on special teams too. He builds himself up to be a captain on special teams, and he matches his enthusiasm with his play on the field.
I would agree with that. But when you talk about the floor, Dave, where are you going with that?
That they try to turn him into a fullback.
Oh, okay. We're going that way.
No. I mean, just what I'm referencing.
Yeah, and I had that. I had that on my list. Sutton Smith.
Yeah,
I knew exactly where you were going to go with it. I thought I was going to. If I went first, I'm going to say I'm stealing this from Dave because I know where Dave's going on this. Sutton Smith. Look, guy had a lot of sacks, just like Nate Herbig did at Wisconsin. But here's the thing: there's some really good things to get excited about with this guy, Nate Herbig. The fact that he's not only coming to a team with his brother on it, he's coming to a team with his best friend in the world, who was just picked 2 rounds ahead of him, and that is Keanu Benton. They are best buddies. They hang out all the time. In fact, because of listening to Wexel the other day, the fact that Benton's this big fisherman and everything, and that just tells you a lot. It gets you excited about both of these guys hanging out. Just like Kenny Pickett at the Kenny Chesney concerts and all of that, those guys get a bond, or like Freiermuth and Gentry. That's a big deal. The fact that he's playing with his brother is a big deal. We just don't know if he translates, if he is a Sutton Smith or if he's a TJ Watt. He also has TJ Watt, who's an alum who went and counseled him his senior year, I think his last season, and counseled him how to get to the quarterback, that goes a long way here too. Biggest wild card in this draft for me is Nate Herbig.
Nick.
So are you doing it on purpose now?
Listen,
you did it 4 times there.
He seems like a Nate. The other one seems like a Nick. Man,
hey, I can't say much. I had to read. I got halfway through a breaking news podcast and had to start over because I kept calling him the wrong name.
Okay, I tell you what.
Yeah.
The Herbig parents, that's not fair to me. You screwed me when you did that. You just didn't know you did it. Don't do that. Alliteration. Stop the alliteration with names.
I did the same thing with my kids, and I can't keep them straight either.
You mean like JJ and TJ and DJ?
Well, Full House ruined that whole DJ thing. Stop the alliteration. Man, we don't have to have it like that.
Yeah.
That just screws things. My grandmother called me Anthony because that was my uncle's name and my grandfather. I got the middle name. I was Anthony for years. My mother calls me Noah now, which is my nephew. You know, they screw that up, and it's not even alliteration. But alliteration is going to kill me. I'm going to keep doing it. So, you know what? I'm not even going to think about it. And yes, Steelers King says you're all going to give Bryan a brain aneurysm. It's coming. It might be live.
Brian's going to give himself a brain aneurysm, not us. Let's make that very clear. Go ahead, David.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, if people didn't mess up names, I don't know what my name would be. The whole reason my parents picked my name is because my father's mother couldn't remember my father's name. And the names that she went through to get there, first was his brother, and then it was her husband, my dad's dad. And that's what how they decided to pick my name, is because my grandmother could never remember my father's name, which is funny because it's Bryan. And he was... When she would get it wrong, they liked the combination, and that's what they named me.
There you go. We learned a little something about Dave Schofield today.
Hey, Jeff Hartman was in the Washington Post because he didn't watch
true.
Star Wars.
Damn straight. That's on my Twitter bio now. Quoted in the Washington Post.
And Bryan Anthony Davis died on the air.
And what?
Died on the air.
Bryan died on the air, but hey.
But at least he played with it. But at least he played with his wiener beforehand.
And if you're gonna do it epic and go viral.
Yeah.
All right, good show so far. Let's finish it off with some trivia. I know, Dave, you have some, but Bryan, do you have any trivia?
No.
All right, good stuff. Dave, go ahead. Trivia. Fire away.
The best color man of the game for nothing. This trivia goes right along with the topic, and I came up with it before Jeff even decided the topic because I kind of based it off my Stat Geek. I almost broke into the trivia partway through the show and said, let's just do it now because it's relevant. But it's, once again, people are like, oh, why are they so against the rookies playing? It's not that we're against the rookies playing, but a rookie's having to play, a lot of your rookies having to play, is that really good? What does that say about your team? The Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-time Super Bowl champions. 6 times. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. In those 6 seasons combined, how many rookies started at least half the games or more during the regular season in those 6 Super Bowl seasons?
An average of 4.
You saying a total of 4 or an average of 4?
An average of 4.
So you're saying 24.
Yeah, let's go with 24. Ooh, that's a little high.
$1.
$1.
Average of 2. Let me change that. 12.
Can you say 12?
Yes.
Jeff?
I already said $1. For those who don't know, we're playing Prices Right rules, so that's why. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why, because Jeff wants to win.
Yes.
The answer is 3.
Wow.
3 total. Are you ready for them?
1970. No. Hold on.
All right.
Let us give you them.
Okay.
Is one of them Heath Miller?
One of them is Heath Miller in 2005.
That was mine. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was
Is that
going
the
with.
only one from the modern era?
Correct, because there was none in 2008.
Yeah.
They almost snuck in because, like Darnell Stapleton, it was his first official year, but he was an undrafted free agent the year before. He was on the 53. He was just inactive all year. So they count 2008 as his rookie year, but he was on the team in 2007. I filter those guys out. They had to come right from the draft or undrafted free agents. So there's one. Heath Miller.
I'm going to go crazy one here. Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson, 1978.
Nice, Brian.
And the other one you guys already know because we already talked about.
Jack Lambert.
Jack Lambert.
Yeah.
So in 74 was Lambert, 75, none. 78, Ron Johnson, 79, none. 2005, Miller, 2008, none.
No.
3 total rookies who started for the season on the Super Bowl teams. I'm also breaking it down as to how did the Steelers do when they had to start a lot of rookies. It's generally not good. It's generally not, because if you're starting a lot of rookies, it means that you lost a lot of pieces or had a lot of pieces that weren't worth getting the rookies out there early, and you didn't have that solid team. So I love the rookies, but the rookies aren't really to build your team this year. Your rookies are there to get the experience this year to really start building it in the future.
Very good. Good trivia. Good like that. Brian, why don't you give us some final thoughts?
All right. So over the last week, I have been pigeonholed now as being a lover of Omar Khan, which it's true. I love this guy a lot.
Arby's.
So if you had a chance, that's what I'm going to bring up now. If you had a chance to listen to Let's Ride yesterday, not only was it a fantastic show, but it was a tremendous show because one of the mailbag participants brought my name up into it. So that's always an instant ratings
Do you remember which member of the Ride or Die crew it was?
Was it Brian?
Was it Brian?
Was it Haynes?
Captain Underpants? I don't know.
Well, he has like 8 on there. I mean,
there's a lot of people that ask a lot of questions.
There's a lot of good thing. This isn't the old time days when you have to put it in on a postcard. So, anyways, I have been a lover of Omar Khan for a while since he pulled off that Chase Claypool trade and everything. But here's one more thing that he did. He kind of egged on division rivals. And I love what he did. And I love how he got Bill Belichick involved and the New York Jets. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And at this point, Omar Khan made Double B, the hoodie, his friend. And he helped egg things on because Bill Belichick said, they could have gotten a higher pick. They could have got a 3rd round pick. But just to screw with the Jets, Bill Belichick was answering Omar Khan's call. And I would have loved to have heard Omar Khan on the other end saying, "Hey, Bill, wouldn't you like to just take something away from the Jets?" And I have a feeling that Bill was like, "All right, I'm all in." So that's my first part of this. My second part is I want to talk about something very special that happened to me this week. And it involves the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I called Jeff and Dave right away. They're the first 2 people besides my family because my family showed it to me. I called them right away. So about 12 years ago, I decided that I was going to go ahead and send 8x10s to players, retired and in stadium. And I would send all these out. And I sent a bunch out. I would give them a Sharpie, a self-addressed envelope, the stamps, everything. I would even put cardboard. I would even put plastic in there. I'd put "Do Not Bend," and I would put my address label on the end. And about 5-6 years ago, about 6 years later, I was like, wow, I just got Josh Miller. And I thought that was pretty awesome. Now, I've gotten some great ones over the years, like Hines Ward, Ben, Tomlin. Actually, if you send one to Tomlin, they come in quick. So I've gotten so many players. Donnie Shell. I could go on and on and on and on. But I kind of forgot all about it. During the draft the other day, on Saturday of the draft, I saw the mailman come up. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if just someone was lagging behind and there was an orange 8x10 envelope? And there wasn't. I walk in Monday and my daughter's all smiles and my wife says, "We have something for you." And she's holding an orange envelope. And she hands it to me. I'm like, wow, I was just thinking about this on Saturday, how old this would be. That's crazy. And I look at where I always have my address label. There's another address label. And I was like, oh my God. Mr. and Mrs. Franco Harris. I opened it up, and I know Franco's signature real well. And that was Franco's signature. My guess is that they were cleaning out Franco's office, and they found it, and this was done, and they sent these out. It was postmarked April 27th. So, it was just sent out. And when I thought about all the tributes that we gave him back in December of what kind of fan guy he was, what kind of humanitarian he was and everything, he never forgot who he was. And in death, his legacy continues. I got that envelope and I was convinced of it. And everything I was saying back in December is tenfold. My gosh, God bless you, Franco. 4 months later, still miss you. But that was a gift that I will never forget and an experience. If I would have gotten it before he passed away, it would have been cool. But the fact that I got it now just means so much more.
Good final thoughts there, Bryan. Dave, good luck following that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a tough one to follow. I'm gonna leave it at that, other than saying I'm really looking forward to next week's show because it's another milestone of the season. So make sure you're here for that, because it's scheduled to be the release of the NFL schedule.
Yeah, schedule release. It always seems to fall on a Thursday. We always seem to do our way too early predictions. I don't know. Maybe I'll do them honest this year instead of just my 17-0. Like
last year was the only year you didn't do it honest.
Yeah,
the year before you did it honest.
I don't know.
He's still very lenient, very optimistic.
All right, good stuff, Dave. Why don't you send us out?
Hey,
we'll see you next week for another Steelers preview.
Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.